Thank you, FROMily. We're back with another recap of our favorite magical show, From. I'm your host with the most, Anthony, and we're picking right up where we left off last week with Reggie walking out of Sarah's old house, screaming for help while covered in blood. This week's episode is titled Ball of Magic Fire. The title is also an expression to describe the sun and how the sun is a phenomena that people can't fully explain, but are just used to. Kristi brings this up in this week's episode when explaining to Ellis the parallels of the phenomena of pregnancy and life, as she explains how we're all on a planet that revolves around a magic ball of fire that keeps us warm from millions of miles away. This term is 100% appropriate as we finally know what the next threat is for our residents as they encounter another unexplainable threat to their lives and now their dreams. But first, do me a favor. If you're new here, please consider giving this channel a like and subscribe to keep up with our weekly From analyses and breakdown, and enable notifications so you're able to watch these videos right after the episode airs. I want to thank all of you who have subscribed and helped this channel give the attention that I think it deserves. As I mentioned, my goal right now, my God-given goal, is to reach 10,000 by the end of the summer. With all of your help, we can get there. Now, back to From. This week's episode starts off with that poor guy Reggie, who is covered in blood, screaming for help, escorting Boyd and Kenny into his house. And we finally learn what it is that he needed help with, as we get a look at the bloody corpse of his poor sister, girlfriend. I don't know who she was to him, but she's gone now. Now, what's interesting is that the guy tells us that she was repeating something over and over again in her sleep before he heard a cracking noise inside her body. Boyd asks Reggie to repeat what it is that he heard, and we find out that he heard, "They touch, they break, they steal, no one is free." And that's all we hear from the guy before he breaks down in grief. Boyd then heads outside to see a good amount of people gathering outside the house, aware that something is going on. Ethan asks if everything is all right, and Boyd lies and says everything is fine, but he sends Ethan home and asks Julie to stay behind. Mrs. Lou escorts Ethan away as Boyd begins formulating a plan to tell everyone in town about their latest threat and how nobody is going to be allowed to sleep tonight. He tells Julie that something killed Paula and that there's something else here now, letting her know that there's a new threat. Julie tells Boyd that her dad, Jim, is out at the RV. We then switch to Jim, who's still confronting Randall, who's kidnapped Donna and tied her to a tree. Last week, Randall was very suspicious of Donna and even tells Jim how he spied on her and saw her with Boyd taking a body of one of the monsters out of the clinic. Donna shares that the body that Randall saw was a result of Boyd killing one of the monsters, but Randall's not buying any of what Donna's selling, based on how convenient it seems that the rules suddenly change when Donna's tied to a tree. And I have to admit, the guy is making a lot of sense from his perspective. Listen, I know he's hot-headed, but I would question things too if I had the same limited information that Randall has. I wouldn't kidnap anybody and tie them to a tree, but I would have some questions. Jim is none too pleased with Randall's actions, and Randall snaps on him, saying it was Jim's idea. Jim denies this and says that it wasn't and goes to help Donna. Randall then goes deeper into his psychosis and accuses Jim of putting the idea in his head and being in on the whole thing. Randall isn't about to let Jim untie Donna and gives him the rock bottom on the dirt for his efforts. Randall then takes things to the next level and whips out a knife and asks Jim if he wants to dance. Right when Jim is about to have some street surgery, Boyd shows up. He lets off one in the air and tells Randall once to drop the effing knife. Randall asks if Boyd is going to shoot him, and you can tell that Boyd is lining up his shot to find out what Randall's thinking, and Randall wisely decides to throw away the knife. Boyd picks up the knife, hands it to Jim to untie Donna. He also warns them that they have about 5 minutes to get out of there before it gets dark. Randall, being the helpful person that he is, lets Boyd know that he has the keys to the van and promptly throws them into the forest, forcing them to have to choose to stay in the RV for the night. We then switch to a shot of town where we see Victor and Jade walking down the road as Julie and Tabitha are on the porch waiting for Jim. Victor and Jade walk into the house with Jade asking why Victor is telling him that they can't go to sleep, and my mind immediately begins to worry about young Ethan. We all know that he's probably at the highest risk and is just one warm milk away from going night-night. We then switch to Sarah and Kenny walking into the sheriff's office for the night. Sarah thanks Kenny for doing this and tries to start some small talk with Kenny, who's struggling to give a fuck about anything that this chick has to say. Sarah continues talking to herself and wonders aloud if this place feeds on their pain. Kenny humors her for a bit and asks what she means. Sarah mentions how Nathan was terrified of cicadas and how they would trouble him when he was young. Sarah is wondering if the fears of the people who die here become part of the forest and theorizes that the cicadas are Nathan's nightmare come to life. We then switch to Colony House. Reggie is inside and warning everyone that they can't go to sleep for the night when they realize that Donna never made it back after leaving the clinic with Kristi. Reggie doubles down by explaining to Fatima that nobody can go to sleep, and Fatima does her best to step up in Donna's absence, and I have to admit that she's doing a much better job at leading than Ellis when he got stabbed for his trouble. Kristi asks if there's a private room that she and Marielle can use, and Ellis volunteers to escort them. We then switch to the RV with Donna, Boyd, Jim, and Randall. Jim wants more detail on why they can't go to sleep, with Boyd telling him to shut the F up. Randall is back in Jim's ear telling him that he needs to pick a lane and stop buying what Boyd and Donna are selling, and then takes a cheap shot and says, "No wonder your family's a effing mess." Jim acts like he's ready to do something, with Randall not even flinching and just daring Jim to do something. Boyd doesn't give Jim the chance to stand up for himself and handcuffs Randall's hands together and then berates Jim for being dumb. Hell, even Donna gets in on it with another one-liner and goes, "So you let a pig to shit and now you're surprised he made a mess?" Jim then makes a case for himself to get back to his family, with Randall mouthing off again, saying he doesn't want to listen to this shit all night. He then gets on Boyd's case, saying how he doesn't know if Boyd is a part of this, and it is abundantly clear that Boyd is about to snap on this guy. Boyd threatens to tie Randall to a tree outside and let him find out for himself if any of this is real. We then switch to Ellis, Kristi, and Marielle getting situated in a guest room in Colony House. Kristi steps out of the room for a moment with Ellis to get supplies, and Ellis is feeling the weight of becoming a parent. His mind instantly wanders to wondering about the baby, and he asks Kristi if the baby that Fatima is carrying is sleeping, and is looking for information from Kristi about whether the baby is safe. And I have to say that I remember these moments of worrying about everything when I became a parent. Ellis's fears are a little different, as he admits that because of their situation that he's low-key afraid the baby will be born with fangs and claws or something. But I understand. Kristi makes a great analogy with how pregnancy is weird and how we're just used to it. We see it every day, the magic ball of fire. We're just used to seeing it there all the time that we're a little desensitized to it. We're floating in space, circling a magic ball of fire that keeps us warm from millions of miles away, and we're just used to it, but it's one big mystery. We then switch to Tabitha and Jade poring over Eloise's drawings, with Jade commenting how Victor forgot his sister. When we hear a very interesting fact about the pictures, Jade then points at the pictures of the Civil War soldiers, wondering out loud why a little girl is drawing pictures of that, when Tabitha corrects him and tells him the pictures that Eloise drew aren't pictures from memory. They're actually pictures from the stories that Victor's mom would tell them when they were children. Jade then wonders why he's having visions from a dead woman's stories from 40 years ago. And wait, what? I thought these pictures were drawings about previous rounds in the cycle of this messed up place, but we're learning that these are actually pictures from a story, which makes me think of the Chromonacle. We don't actually hear them say it, but, you know, it makes me think of the Chromonacle. I mean, these drawings are way more specific to what's happening in town than the Chromonacle ever was. We have pictures of the diner, the boy in white, the garbage pail kids, and even a faraway tree. Look, at this point, I'm totally open to theories on this because I'm with Jade. Why is he having visions of some dead woman's children's stories? Tabitha then focuses on the drawing of the lighthouse and tells Jade that Victor's mom wanted to rescue the children locked up in the tower, and Tabitha shares that she's had dreams about this place. She then wonders if the children that haunt her have been asking for help. We then see Mrs. Lou whip out some board games, and with her increasingly good English, she encourages everyone to sit and play to feel better. And did I tell you all that Mrs. Lou is on my sus list? Cause, yeah. Julie then notices that Ethan is staring out the window and tells him to turn away for a second. I was afraid that Grandma was outside again talking about how she misses everyone. Ethan is looking all sleepy-eyed and cranky and asks out loud if his dad is going to die, and then if they're all going to die. Julie tries to console him, but Ethan mentions how when Victor was little that everyone died all at the same time. Victor blurts out that it won't happen like that again, but Ethan stumps him when he asks him, "How do you know?" And the first thing I thought was, wait, Ethan, how do you know? Who the hell told this little boy about Victor's past? Listen, you're doing a lot of stuff off camera right now, and it's tough to continue to keep up with all of my theories if all these characters are having all these side conversations without us. Julie tries to cheer up Ethan with a story about the Cromanacle, and Ethan's still a little tired, and he's not with it. And he says that the Cromanacle isn't real, it's just a stupid story. Victor then chimes in and shares a story from his mother where she told him that everything is a story, and we're the ones who get to decide how it ends. Ethan then snaps back with, "What about her story? Did it end the way that she wanted?" Even Mrs. Lou is bothered by his statement and asks him to be good before Ethan storms off. We then switch to Boyd in the RV, with Boyd coating his bullets in the monster's bile. Donna then suggests a fantastic idea and volunteers that Boyd give his gun to Randall and let him go outside to test out the theory. One way or the other, they solve a problem, and yeah. Man, the monsters start showing up, and we hear that familiar shriek in the forest, and it doesn't seem like Boyd's had any problems with Donna's idea, as he promptly begins to hand Randall his gun to go outside. And did you see the look on Randall's face? Yo, my guy is sure as hell hesitated now, but before he can get any more pressure to head out, Jim questions if they're gonna let him do this. Boyd is with it, and he encourages Randall to make a decision, with Randall signaling to take off his handcuffs. Donna then notices that the creatures outside stop getting any closer and is extremely bothered by this new behavior. Donna remarks how they don't normally just stop like that. That's when we start hearing that familiar sound. That nice and eerie music box, with Boyd initially checking his arm for worms and then starts looking around. Everyone seems to be able to hear the music box, with Randall first noticing that the music is coming from the radio in the RV that has no power, no electricity, and no visible means of functionality because it's broken into a million pieces. Everyone seems to realize that shit is about to get real. We then switch back to Colony House, with Marielle deciding to redecorate the room. She's suffering from her withdrawal, with Kristi catching her just in time to stop her from opening a window. Apparently, Marielle is hallucinating and is visibly terrified that something is in the room with her, before she goes through a few mood swings and starts berating Kristi and blaming her for her behavior. Things continue to get worse for poor Marielle, and I admit that I actually feel bad for her in her situation. Marielle seems to calm down a bit and has a seat on the bed with Kristi consoling her. Marielle then urges Kristi to use the bed strap to tie her down for the night as a precaution. We then switch to Sarah and Kenny still hashing it out in the post office / police station. Sarah is clearly nervous and just blurts out some half-assed apology, with Kenny getting increasingly bothered by Sarah talking to him. Sarah decides not bother to listen to Kenny or care about his feelings or his frequent requests to stop talking to him. When Kenny hears enough, it reminds Sarah that her ass should have went in the box a long time ago. Sarah continues to try to make it about her and continues seeking pity from Kenny when he screams at her to just shut the fuck up. She outright tells him that she won't stop, and how Kenny thinks he's the only person that lost something, and how she's tired. And man, I don't know how she You know what? That's a whole other conversation, and I'm with Kenny when he's heard enough and tells Sarah how Boyd keeps a spare gun in the drawer, and if she really wants out, she can do whatever the F she wants to do. We then switch to Colony House with Reggie having a full-on panic attack and screaming for people to wake up. Ellis tries to intervene and calm down Reggie, but Ellis gets a rock bottom for his effort, with Elgin finally stepping in to help someone and dragging Reggie's irate ass upstairs. We then switch back to the RV with the music still playing through the radio and the monsters holding their ground in a circle surrounding the RV. Randall is shocked about the music coming from the radio, and he asks, how is this thing working when it's in pieces? Boyd then grabs his gun and tells Donna that he needs to go outside and see if his silver bullets work. He then warns Donna that every time we hear this music play, we know bad shit is about to happen and they need to get the F out of there. Randall realizes that he's now in his own private episode of
When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong.
When the music stops, oh shit, it stops and something starts knocking beneath the RV. Jim comments that it shouldn't be possible as if there isn't any space under the RV, and Boyd gets them all to stand on one side of the RV and tells them to get ready to run. Randall has seen enough and grabs some random tool, breaks a window, and climbs out of the RV to run. Unfortunately for Randall, all the citizens of Mayberry, all the monsters notice him as he escapes the RV and start following him through the woods. Boyd tells Donna and Jim to try to get the van going and takes this opportunity to try his silver bullets, and shows us that Abby really was the marksman in the family and seems to only hit one of them in the shoulder. But regardless, the monster doesn't even flinch. Jim and Donna reach the van and seem to get it started. But didn't Randall throw the van keys into the forest? Maybe they just planned to hotwire the car. I don't know. Plot convenience. Anyway, none of that matters because Boyd is still in the RV, and here's his wife? Yes, Mr. Fish and Loaves hears his wife in the RV, who takes this moment to urge Boyd to come back to me. Boyd hears a monster shriek, which is enough to snap him out of it, and he heads toward the van after wasting a few more bullets on the monsters. We then see Randall wandering through the forest, alone, lost, when he hears that newly terrifying sound of cicadas in the woods. Randall continues to run, but it's already too late as he's surrounded by cicadas who catch him slipping and begin to cover him and do all sorts of nasty stuff like going in his mouth. We then switch to Kenny and Sarah back in the post office, with Kenny noticing that Sarah found Boyd's spare gun and bullets. Kenny tells her to put it away, but Sarah says how it's what everyone wants. Isn't it? They talk a bit with Kenny doubling down by telling Sarah to put the gun away. Sarah isn't listening and tells Kenny how her being in the box would be out of Kenny's hands and how she doesn't want to cause him any more pain. And she suggests to pretend that she's in the box and let this place decide. Sarah decides to play some Russian roulette and loads 2 bullets in the gun. Kenny makes a move to stop her and she points the gun at him before pointing the gun at her head. She's able to pull the trigger once, but the gun doesn't fire. Kenny grabs the gun before she can try again and unloads it of its bullets. We then switch to Colony House with Elgin sitting with Tilly and showing her how to crochet owls. It's always owls. Fatima walks by and says some kind words and gets a compliment from Tilly, telling Fatima that she thinks she's going to be a great mom. Fatima is shocked as she hasn't told anyone, and Elgin asks her if she's pregnant, with Fatima confirming. Elgin has a super concerned look on his face when he states that he just now remembered his dream. Before Elgin can say anything, we hear the sound of Donna's van pulling up in the front of Colony House. We then switch to Marielle, now tied down to the bed, and Kristi trying to make her comfortable. Marielle mentions how she's thirsty, and Kristi offers to get her some juice. As Kristi heads out, Marielle begins hearing sounds in the room of cicadas, with some of the creatures coming into the room through the window, and then finally doing the same thing they did to Randall by covering her body before finally crawling in her mouth. Ugh. Kristi bursts into the room but tells Marielle that she doesn't see anything on her, but Marielle is still in a full-on panic. We then switch to Donna, Jim, and Boyd downstairs talking to everyone about the situation and trying to calm everyone down, with Jim trying his best to go back outside, saying he needs to get back to his family. Jim begins getting aggressive with his attempts when Boyd notices, and he and the random at the door each pull a gun to Jim's head, reminding everyone of a very valuable lesson. The more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out. We then hear Kristi upstairs in Colony House screaming for someone to help her. We then switch to Marielle, who's upstairs. Her eyes are now glossed over, and she's choking on something, and she's seemingly catatonic. Boyd bursts in and tries to calm Kristi down, but Kristi has a complete breakdown and clearly is worried for the worst. Boyd tries to urge Kristi to be a doctor and help her, but Kristi is at a loss. Donna walks in, looks at Marielle, but doesn't say a word. Ellis then walks in and urges his dad to come right now. At first, Boyd says not now, but Donna tells Boyd to go. And I gotta tell you that when this happened, I immediately had flashbacks to when Ellis tried to get Boyd's attention when he wanted to talk about his mom's deteriorating mental state during that flashback in season 1. Boyd was right about to repeat a mistake when Donna was at the right place at the right time to prevent that from happening. We then switch to Elgin, surrounded by Fatima, Boyd, Ellis, and Bacta, while finally explaining what happened in his dream when he was sleeping on the bus. Elgin mentions that when Fatima mentioned that she was pregnant, that it all came back to him, and fuck. Damn it, man. Elgin. Fuck, dude. Fuck. Boyd is going through a gamut of emotions as he's hearing this for the first time, with Ellis and Fatima confirming with the looks on their faces. Boyd is able to refocus and asks Elgin to talk about his dream when Elgin tells him that a boy, all dressed in white, was repeating the same thing over and over. Here they come for 3, unless you stop the melody. Bacta speaks up and says it's an old nursery rhyme that her grandma used to tell her. They touch, they break, they steal. No one here is free. Here they come for 3, unless you stop the melody. Now, there's nothing out there about this rhyme, and it seems that this is a wholly original nursery rhyme created for the show, kind of like the Chromanacle. While the specific origin of this rhyme within the context of the show may be fictional, there are possible inspirations or symbolic interpretations. Given the themes of the show and the references to touch, break, steal, and the necessity to stop the melody, it could be inferred that the rhyme represents an ancient warning or curse associated with a supernatural presence or malevolent force. The mention of "they come for 3" suggests a targeted threat against a specific group of individuals. The idea of a malevolent force coming for 3 could draw upon themes of enchantments, protective spells, or the consequences of disturbing or disrespecting certain sacred objects or places in Irish folklore. In some Irish legends, there are stories of curses or warnings associated with specific actions or transgressions where individuals or groups face dire consequences for their deeds. Let's come back to this. We then finally switch back to Jade and Tabitha, who are still studying Eloise's drawings. Tabitha theorizes to Jade that maybe Victor's mom was right, and maybe saving those children is how they all go home, when they hear screaming from the other room. Tabitha rushes to the other room to see that Julie is freaking the fuck out on the floor, and it looks like Julie is having the same experience as Randall and Marielle by being covered by cicadas when the credits roll. And wow. Whew, yeah, they sure came for 3, didn't they? Things have picked up to a whole new level of threat with the killer cicadas in town, causing all sorts of problems for our poor residents. And Sarah, she's giving Kenny a completely different type of psychological torture that he's definitely not ready for, and I can't help but wonder what's running through her mind. So let's just ask Sarah. Avery, thank you so much for this opportunity. I know you're very busy. I'll be as brief as possible. Your character is without a doubt one of the most fascinating characters on television in years, I think.
Really?
So, yeah, I think so. But I'm going to ask you some hard questions. So you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. First question.
Mhm.
Why did Toby have to die? And did Sarah gut him when she killed him? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you would have to ask the voices why he had to die. That's not her fault. But she did run the screwdriver through his throat. That's for sure.
Okay. Like, I saw her stab him, and I remember they showed a scene where like they revisited his body, and seemed like he was gutted like the monsters, and I wasn't sure if that was.
Oh no, I didn't do that. That was she left the door open, and the monsters got in and got the rest of him.
Okay, that solves one mystery. Oh my gosh, thank you. But that was a season 1 question. One thing I was curious about, and you've done a lot of really cool scenes. What was your favorite scene to film in either season 1 or in season 2?
Oh man, that's really hard. The scene with Ethan and Nathan, I don't want to say that was my favorite, but it was really difficult because we had to do like stunts and stuff, and we had rehearsals beforehand. Mm-hmm. But I think that was one of the most rewarding scenes. I think my favorite scene to shoot would be episode 6, season 1, with Father Kotri in the basement. We shot all those scenes in one day. We shot that entire episode, or all of our scenes, in one day, in order. So it was really cool to be able to go through the full journey in one day, even though it was exhausting. I think that was also very rewarding in season 1. And then season 2, filming episode 5 and episode 9, I think, were my favorites.
Do you guys normally film in order, or is it just normally?
We film in blocks. So it's called block shooting, and you film 2 episodes at a time. So you can be doing a scene from episode 3 and then like the end of episode 4 on the same day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest misconception fans have of Sarah? And what are the biggest misconceptions people have about Avery?
Oh man. I think the biggest misconception about Sarah is that she's a bad person. I don't think she's a bad person. I think she does bad things. And the voices get the best of her sometimes, but I think at her core, she's a really good person. And as Avery, I think as I get older, I used to really, be more invested in what people thought of me, but I kind of just think what people think of me is like I don't have any control over that. Mm-hmm. And I try my best to not let it affect me if they have like a version of me that I don't feel is true. And I just kind of try to let it roll off my back without putting too much stock into it. Okay.
Well, Sarah's one of my favorite characters, so you have me rooting for you.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate the support.
Sarah had Nathan.
Yeah.
Who's the unsung hero for Avery?
In my real life?
Yeah.
I think definitely my partner. Yeah. Helps me through everything.
What are you most excited for fans to learn about Sarah in season 2?
I think just watching her journey and kind of who she is and seeing the more raw side of her is what I'm excited for people to take away from Sarah this season. You definitely see a more, like I said, raw side of her, which is very different. And the chaos is happening internally more instead of externally, which is also a different perspective. And I think I'm most excited for people to see that.
Now, I'm going to ask you one more question. I asked this one to Ricky.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping you can give me a better answer.
Okay.
Why is this show called From?
Oh, no. I can only... I picture he was probably like, see, like there was a. That's my impression of Ricky. I honestly feel like I don't have a better answer, but I feel like the name From captures the energy and the mystery of what the show feels like. You know, you kind of see the word from and the way they've I don't know, the way I just really think it captures the essence of what the show is, if that makes sense, in a really weird way.
Okay. I've been struggling with this one. It's been going crazy on Reddit. Who do you think? Well, here's a different question. If you were in Sarah's shoes and you had to make a choice, this is me asking Avery.
Yes.
Would you choose town or would you choose Colony House?
I would choose Colony House.
You would choose Colony House?
Yeah, because I would want to be surrounded by more people.
Okay.
I also think it depends if I would come into town alone too. If I was with somebody, then maybe I'd want to be in a house, but I think I'd want to be in the Colony House.
Okay. Now, I know nobody really has the answer.
Yeah.
Anthony, I'm so sorry. We're quite overtime at this point, so I'll need you to wrap.
No problem at all. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for speaking with me. This is going to be a really good hit with my fans. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Avery. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. It was nice talking with you.
Have a great one. Bye.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. I know this is a lot for a penultimate episode, but I promise you next week is going to be even more. OMG. As much as I want to talk about this episode, I am bursting at the seams to finally be able to talk to you about next week's finale. Trust me, this is the one. Episode 9 is great, but episode 10 is going to have us all sitting here ready to talk. These videos are getting longer, and episode 10's breakdown is going to be just as much. So bear with me as we get ready to go over the stunning finale next week because, yo, let me tell you, episode 10. Anyway, but as usual, if you're new here, please do me a favor and consider giving this video a like. And before you go to your next video, please go ahead and subscribe so you can join the FROMily as we recap and break down each episode right after it airs. Otherwise, I'm going to have to check you guys later.